All right. Good morning. Happy Tuesday, and welcome to our weekly conference call here. My name is Matt Ham, co-founder of Uprint, Faith and Personal Development. And as you may know by now, we have a license, if you will, with Red Earth to help with some holistic conversations and developing a culture of excellence here at Red Earth and among the team members all across the country. So I'm really enjoying how this is starting to take root. So many of you are jumping on the calls live, and then there's a number of you who are watching the replays. And listen, we understand that you have busy schedules, you have demands and things that you need to do. So if you can't make a call, no worries. That's why we do the replays. But today, I really felt led to dive into a fairly difficult topic. This is a topic that a lot of folks don't like to address or talk about, but it's essential, and it's the idea of relationships. I think that a lot of times we demand excellence in our performance or in our productivity or in how we carry out our daily lives in regards to our business, right? So it's about making the calls. It's about being excellent when we're presenting or taking folks on tour and follow up and all the different things that we do to create an excellent culture. Or when we're building houses, the house has to be excellent. And I think that we make a terrible mistake when we leave out excellence as a part of our relationships, because it's really easy to maybe perform in an excellent way or produce an excellent product, but having to navigate relationships with excellence is a higher and much more difficult standard, in my opinion. But if we have excellent product and excellent relationships, it is really about a holistic idea of excellence. So we can't negate one for the other. You could be great relationally and put out a terrible product, and that's not good. Or you can be putting out a phenomenal product but be terrible in relationships, and that's not good. So the holistic mindset as we approach this is about excellence, and I think relationships is a great place to focus. So that being said, I'm going to dive into today. I've got kind of 3 points, if you will, to make, and then a challenge for each one of you who tune in. So make sure you watch all the way through the end to kind of complete the challenges and really take this in a personal way and apply it in your own lives right where you guys are. So I think the first thing that I want to say, and the first kind of headline of this entire conference call today, is that we were created for relationships. Now, we kind of maybe fly by that logically and go, okay, relationships were created for that. But I mean this, inherently, we were created for relationships. The old saying, no man is an island, kind of thing. I think that was John Donne. But anyway, the concept is this isn't about extrovertedness or introvertedness, right? Regardless of personality, extroverted or introverted, we still were created for relationships. And that means that we have to be excellent in them if we were created for them. And so we have to let that sink in and understand that if we're not in relationship, if we're not excellent in relationship, there's a chink in the armor, and that's an essential part of our lives that is missing out. So we have to understand we were created for relationships. Now, that being said, the first really point I want to make is that relationships are nothing more than an opportunity. I see every relationship as an opportunity. And you can look at this from a sales perspective or a mindset perspective of growth and say that every person you meet is an opportunity for you to pour into them, for you to bring value to them. But I'm actually talking about the flip side of this and talking about difficult relationships. Difficult relationships in our lives are often the ones that we want to write off. But really, those are the ones that provide the greatest opportunity. And so if I asked you guys right now to think of a difficult relationship in your life, I would stand to reason that we all probably could think about these difficult relationships because they're on the forefront of our minds. Now, I'm not just talking about our business relationships, I'm talking about our personal relationships as well. Because as we have made very clear, and as a part of kind of our culture dynamic here, is that you cannot be professionally successful and personally miserable, but for so long. Eventually, those two cars will collide and there'll be a nasty wreck there. And that's often when we get to do our greatest work, is walking with people through kind of those difficult situations that have exploded. So on the front end of this, understand that we're both talking about business relationships and our personal relationships as well. And so that being said, just understand that every difficult relationship in your life is an opportunity. What is it an opportunity for? Well, for me, I believe that these opportunities are an opportunity to put our values on display. Every difficult relationship for us is an opportunity for us to show who we truly are. I tell this to my kids all the time because they're in, public school system and they've got difficult relationships with friends. And I said, buddy, every time someone challenges you, it gives you an opportunity to display your character. Now, a 9-year-old has a hard time understanding that. A 30-year-old, a 40-year-old, a 50-year-old has a hard time understanding that. But we have to begin looking at difficult relationships as an opportunity for us to be who we truly are, our best self. If we believe in things like love, if we believe in things like integrity, if we believe in things like compassion, then difficult relationships are always going to challenge our greatest values. In fact, they are difficult because they are challenging our greatest values, right? And so we have to be mindful that these difficult relationships are nothing more than an opportunity. Once we see them that way, then it lets us put our values on display. Now, for me personally, I come from a very faith-based perspective. I'm a follower of Jesus. That's who I am. I don't lean on the word Christianity or religion because of a lot of the stigmas that are associated with that. But for me, there's a really interesting dynamic within kind of my faith life that if God chose to be in relationship with me, then my relationships are an opportunity to put him on display, which reveals the convictions of my heart. I say this over and over again. I think that religious culture has messed up so much when we enter into relationships with an agenda. And it's an agenda of getting people to do what we do, to think like we think, to control them, or whatever the case might be, instead of using these opportunities of relationship to simply reveal or to let out what our greatest values are. For me, if I'm a believer, then I have to understand that I carry that with me in every relationship that I'm in. And so that is powerful to consider, especially when you look at the world that wants to segregate our faith life and our business life and go, it's not personal, it's just business. One of the things that we joke about in our company is that Jesus, right, would have never have said, hey, it's not personal, man, it's just business. But yet we use that as an opportunity to kind of write off our value system and say, hey, it's just business, and that licenses me to be a jerk when that's not a part of who we want to be, right? So we have to consider how we are using relationships. Are we seeing them as an opportunity to express who we truly are? Are we seeing them as an opportunity to put our values on display? Or are we using them as an opportunity to manipulate a situation or take advantage of somebody for our own gain? And that's where we have to get really honest about this. And I know this might sound high-minded or like a big picture thing, but I promise you, excellence goes all the way as deep as you want it to go to the root of the problems and saying, why would I treat someone a certain way in relationship? And is that consistent with who I want to be? And that's that challenging piece. All right. The second idea here is something we've heard, maybe is like a platitude from a pulpit or something, and that is bless those who curse you. Now I'm going to read this passage here, and this is out of Luke chapter 6. This is Jesus speaking, and it's a pretty common thing. I just want to take it at its word, though, so just join me in this and take it at word. He says, but I say to you who hear, love your enemies. Do good to those who hate you. Bless those who curse you, and pray for those who abuse you. Now, I don't know about you, but that is an entirely different standard when we consider how we are engaging in relationships. It's hard to bless those who bless us sometimes, right? Because we think we deserved it or it's about time, that kind of thing. But when you start thinking about blessing those who curse you, what you're seeing here is a call for us in relationships to reveal something about our character, something about our values, something about our beliefs, something greater than ourselves to those who may oppose us. Now, that is a really, really challenging thing to do, but it is kind of our call. And so here's the point in this one. I think what the root of this is how people treat us does not give us the freedom to treat them the same way, right? How people treat us does not give us the license on how to treat them. Excellence requires that we are excellent in our relationships regardless of what is or isn't reciprocated. Now, what I'm not saying is continue to be abused by people, right? There's a powerful concept here that we were not created to be doormats and let people walk on us. We have to be three things. We see this as a three-legged stool. This is how we teach it. You have to be gentle, you have to be joyful, but you have to be firm. You see, a lot of times people misunderstand this and they go, well, you're just saying be gentle and be joyful. But if you're not firm, people will walk over you. That's not what I'm saying. You have to be firm with people. You don't let people mistreat you. You speak your piece in that regard, but you do it from a place of gentleness and joyfulness and yet firmness instead of from a place of anger, hatred, frustration, and all that kind of stuff. And again, like I said, these may seem like very high-minded ideals, but I think that if we would pause with them for long enough and look at our culture, this is rampant in our culture today. And what it does is it leaks into our own minds and into our own hearts, and it comes out when we're in relationship with our coworkers, with our spouses, with our clients. We often get clients sometimes who can be demanding, who can be difficult, who are rude and difficult, but that doesn't give us license to be rude to them. It does give us license to understand how we want to respond and honor who we are and be truthful about that, but not to be at their beck and call and take, if you will, abuse from them. So I think it's powerful to consider bless those who curse you kind of thing. How is that playing out in your life? And certainly how it's playing out in my life. And again, the final point of this second piece here is excellence is the standard. If you say something is excellent, that means that it is excellent. It can't be less than excellent. So the standard is excellence. You can't settle for anything less. And so when you start to look at not just individual relationships, but all of your relationships, if you've got 2 relationships that aren't excellent and you've got 10 relationships that are excellent, that means that all of your relationships are not excellent. And so you have to be willing to deal with the difficult relationships in our lives because it creates toxic environments and it robs us of our good energy, and we cannot be excellent in all we do because it bleeds over. And so I think about a story of mine. It's a very personal story to me, but I had a very difficult situation at a place I worked a while back where the person that I was working for did not display excellence in his relationship toward me. In fact, I was, often felt like I was belittled. I was talked down to. I was made fun of. And it was kind of in a joking, kind of office-y way, where you're like, I'm just picking on you, man, kind of thing. But it was incredibly humiliating, intended to be humiliating. And early on in that relationship, I found myself wanting to fight back and, kind of fighting fire with fire, right? That old adage that we heard with, growing up as kids. But, again, what good does that do? Because it dropped me down to his level. My mom used to tell me this when I was growing up, or my dad, I can't remember one of them. They said, argue with a fool and an onlooker can't tell the difference. When you get into a bad, toxic relationship, when you go down to people's level, an onlooker wouldn't know the difference. And so you have to be held to a much higher standard. Now, in this environment, I was forced to confront this person and to tell them that I didn't appreciate how they had treated me. I didn't appreciate how they spoke to me, and I was firm about that. And it stood the risk of some fairly damaging things. But what happened was I found incredible freedom in it because I was able to speak my mind, and I didn't have to live that out any longer. The same thing holds true when I was selling insurance. I had clients who would constantly want to say things. I got cursed at and all these things. And you have to be firm, but you cannot enter into their stress. And I think that's the challenge with this. And the really key point here is when you bless those who curse you, it keeps you from entering into the stress that they are feeling. Because the truth is, if someone is cursing you, they are cursing you out of their own pain. They are cursing you out of their own deficiency. So we have to be mindful enough to pause, not enter into their stress or come from our own stress and pain. And we have to be gentle, joyful, and firm as we walk with them in that. So the first one is relationships are an opportunity. The second, bless those who curse you, not entering into the people's stress. And the final is your business is your mission. This is so powerful. And, it's interesting. I saw John and the team was in the conference room today, and they were working through some new digital software. They are always pressing the envelope about doing an excellent job with renderings and site plans and all of the resources that help the team and the builders and the developers sell homes. And it's fantastic. And they're looking at that from an excellent standpoint. They want it to be excellent. They're looking at the competition, and they want it to be, carrying that standard, that gold standard, that signature of Red Earth. And I think the same is true for us in how we navigate our relationships. So I would say that these little communities, these pocket communities all over the country, are your own little mission field. This is where you get the opportunity to live out what excellence looks like. And if you have great site plans and beautiful homes and beautiful communities, but we're not treating people with a level of excellence that is consistent across the board, then we're missing the opportunity. So your business, your relationships, they are your mission field. And I like to say it this way, is you get to be the good news. Be the good news. What do I mean by that? I mean, when you walk into a room or when you step into a meeting with a client, you bring light and energy and joy and love into that arena. You get to bring it. Now, they might have a vacuum turned on trying to suck it out of you, but you still get to be the good news. And so that is part of the essence of how we want to carry ourselves in relationship. Now, one thing else, I'll step in and say this too. Interpersonally within the organization, if you have let's say that a salesperson is waiting on something for, one of their clients, and it's a rendering or something like that. I remember meeting with a mortgage team. This has been a number of years ago, and I may have used this example before, but basically the loan officers were angry that the loans weren't getting closed on time, and they were blaming the closing coordinators. And I said, well, how often do you ever invest in the closing coordinators when you don't need something from them? And the room got real quiet because they all knew that those relationships were nothing more than a take relationship. They were just saying, you're here for the closing, and I'm going to take that from you. And if you don't do it on time, then I'm going to speak down to you and get on you. But I'm saying, invest in the relationships around you. Be the good news to people. If it's I don't know if you're in a situation where you've got someone who works the front gate from a security perspective. I used to always remember that a security gate in a community, and I don't know if you guys have any, but this is a good example. It's a security gate. That is generally a first impression of someone coming into a community. Or if it's a receptionist at the front desk when somebody walks in the door, that is a first impression. So you want to invest in those people who make the first impressions for you, not because of what it gets you, but just because you're going to be the good news. Because if you lack excellence, all the way throughout the process, it is a real challenge to be able to make that up on the back end. And so part of developing an excellent culture is top to bottom, bottom to top, start to finish. That's how we have to be. And so the last thing I'd say here is this boils down to doing what is right, not what you have the right to do. Think of this a very powerful way. Do what is right, not what you have the right to do. You see, a lot of times in relationships, when things go south and we're mistreated, we feel like it gives us the right to go against our character, to go against our values, and to do something because it's been done to us. The challenge of excellence is to do what is right all the time in every relationship, right? Now, I know this is difficult. It's challenging. I'm not saying it's perfect and that I've even got it figured out. I mean, Lord knows I need much help here. But one of the practices, and this is where I'm going to end today with, and I hope that those watching this will really take the initiative to practice this, because I feel like it is a powerful, powerful dynamic that very few people actually participate in. So this is about forgiveness and restoration. Forgiveness and restoration. A lot of times what I find is people are unable to move beyond the things that they are unwilling to forgive. And, I saw this in my own life. I sat in a very angry place for probably a year and a half at a certain individual, and I was like, I'm not forgiving them, and I'm certainly not asking their forgiveness because they don't deserve it, X, Y, Z, et cetera, et cetera. And it ate me up inside. It robbed me of joy. It made me angry. And it completely put a lid on my potential and capacity. Until one day I really felt convicted. I felt like the Lord was telling me, you need to forgive this person. And so I went and did it. And it's the same situation I just mentioned a minute ago. So here's the big challenge for us today. When a relationship goes south, when something is challenging, is difficult, we should be about and desire restoration, not revenge. Restoration, not revenge. We should seek to restore relationships. It doesn't mean if somebody's wronged you. Forgiveness does not mean forgetting what it is that was done. And you do not have to enter into a situation again where you could be potentially taken advantage of, abused, or whatever the case might be. But you do have to move beyond it in your heart to seek restoration instead of seeking revenge. Revenge and unforgiveness. There are many people who are bedridden with the cancer of revenge and unforgiveness. And so, to break the hold that might have in our lives holistically, here are 3 challenges that I'm kind of submitting to you guys today to walk this out. It could be within your business life. It could be within your personal life. But I do believe wherever it is, it will lead to the better expression holistically of who you are and how you've been called to kind of bring your excellence to the world. Number one person that you need to forgive. One person that you need to forgive. Don't know who it is. Don't know what they've done. You might not be ready for it yet. But I don't think we can grow beyond the situations and the people we are unwilling to forgive. And that's a really difficult thing to hear, but I have seen it true in my own life and believe it to be true. If you've read any of my book, Redefine Rich, you'll read a story about Gary Weller, who was a high school football coach. He was intentionally run over by a man who was dead set on killing him with his vehicle. And he was left for dead, broken, in the middle of a street. He had broken every bone in his body except his skull and his spine, I believe. And Gary was left for dead. He spent 2 years on his back recovering, and when Gary recovered, he went to the trial of this gentleman and publicly forgave him in the courthouse. And it is one of the most dynamic pictures of freedom that I've ever seen, because Gary is free from that because he forgave this gentleman and moved beyond it, even though this gentleman had tragically changed the entire course of his life by running him over. The second thing is this: one person you need to apologize to. I think a lot of times excellence is waiting on the other side of our apology. And that is about humility, and it's also about vulnerability of saying, you know what, I messed up. This is on me. I'm going to own it. I'm going to take personal responsibility, and I'm going to apologize to someone. Now, that doesn't mean they have to forgive you. It doesn't mean the apology has to be received. It means that you have to release the apology and be humble enough. And what I think you'll find is if you will, it does something inside of your heart where you know that you know that you know that you can have peace because you have handled the situation with excellence and holding to your own values. And then the final thing is this: one person you need to bless. Now, what do I mean by bless? I don't mean dropping $100 bill on them, although you could. I don't necessarily meaning, praise, but more about from your heart blessing someone in your life who might need it. And it could be a spouse, it could be a coworker going through a difficult situation, and you have to pay attention to what that little still small voice is saying inside. Maybe it is, hey, I'm going to send them to dinner on me and say, listen, go have an awesome dinner with your spouse. I really appreciate who you are. Go enjoy yourself. Or it could be someone who is struggling like a single mom or something like that. And you can say, you know what? I am going to pay for them to get a sitter so that they can go to get a massage or go to the day spa or whatever. Think about this specifically for those that are in management or in leadership. If there's someone in your organization that is doing an excellent job, don't hesitate to call it out. People long to be praised. They long to be feel approved, and they long to be seen and known and appreciated, right? They long to be appreciated. And people want to know that you believe in them. And, I think of Coach Jim Valvano. He's a great legendary coach for North Carolina State. The Jimmy V Foundation, don't give up, don't ever give up. You've probably seen that on the television. But Jim Valvano has a great speech, and he says the greatest gift his father ever gave him is that his father believed in him. And, it's interesting, as Jim Valvano tells this great story that they had never gone to the national championship before. And he said, when I started coaching, he said, my dad, Rocco Valvano, looked at me and he said, son, my bags are packed. He said, Dad, what do you mean? He goes, son, when you make it to the big dance, to the national championship, my bags are packed. I'm going to be there for you. And he said the first few years he coached, he never made it. But every year his father would go, son, my bags are packed. And so, of course, in 1983, his father was courtside when NC State made one of the greatest upsets in the history of college basketball and defeated Phi Slamma Jamma in the national championship at the buzzer. And Jim Valvano tells the story. He says, I looked at my dad in the stands, and he said, in that moment I knew the greatest gift my father gave me is that he believed in me. And so one of the greatest blessings you can give other people is to actually believe in them. Don't blow smoke up the rear end. Don't let it be false, but actually appreciate the people around you and then bless those that the Lord puts on your heart to bless. And I think if you seek restoration, not revenge, you're willing to forgive, you're willing to apologize, and you're willing to bless others, it will completely blow you away at the amount of peace and I believe abundance that you will begin to experience in your life. So that is today's conference call kind of coming to a conclusion here. I know it's challenging. I would love to hear any thoughts from those who are on live. If you have anything you want to add or any questions you want to ask or anything like that, feel free. Now's when you can unmute your mic and dive in. For those who are watching this on recording, if you have any questions on this or any situations you want to walk through interpersonally, happy to do that. But I believe very firmly in this, and I think that this is a powerful, powerful tool that may be holding some of you back from stepping into this fullness that I believe you were created for. So that being said, I'm about to wrap up. Does anybody have anything who's on the live call today? Awesome, Christine. Thanks so much for tuning in. Awesome, Julianne. Thank you so much. I appreciate you guys taking the time. Kim as well. Rosalie, I thank you guys for taking the time to dive into this. And I'm available if any of you need anything or have any questions. Thank you guys so much for being here, and we will see you guys next week.